Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at the Tecware VXL EVO. This is a new and improved version of the previous Tecware VXL. This includes some new fans, so they've got 4 fans included straight out of the box for your RGB delights, one of which at the back is a standard fan just blowing out the back, whereas you've got 3 on this side which are all inverted, so these are going to be pulling air in. Basically, you've got a reverse fan blade on there. So this is actually a really nice case. You've got the kind of fish tank look, which a lot of people seem to be going for these days, with dual tempered glass side panels, both of which very easy to remove. Very nice case. It is a little bit on the large side, hence the name VXL. So this is the larger brother of the VXN and arguably of the VXR as well. So today we're going to go through, do a quick tour of the case, take it apart, see what it's all about, and then towards the end of the video I will give you my final thoughts on it, and then you can make out the decision if it's suitable for your next build. So let's start off first of all with the packaging, and we'll take a look at some of the specifications on the side of the box. I'll give you some close-ups of that so you can take a quick look. Essentially it's going to go over a lot of the features we're going to be talking about in here, so don't worry too much if you've missed it. Alternatively, you can check out the links in the video description below, which will go to Tecware's website and also to Amazon affiliate links, so if you want to pick up one of these, you certainly can do. So we'll start off with the front of the case. So as you can see, there is a tempered glass side panel. The side panel, very easy to remove, and all you need to do is remove a screw at the back, which isn't captive, as you've probably just guessed as I've dropped it, and just grab the panel and pull it forward. There's like a little latch on the side here. Pull that out and it rests in the bottom, so it's not actually going to fall out. There is a mechanism at the bottom and you can pull it away and remove it. Nice thick glass. I think this is about 4mm tempered glass, so nice thick glass. Now to remove the other piece of tempered glass, there is actually a screw which lives in up here. This is just to keep it in place, I guess, during transit. It's actually been fine without it, so you don't need to put it back in if you don't want to. And to remove this panel, just literally pull from the top and it unclips from the top. Again, you've got a little ledge at the bottom which it rests in. Again, 4mm tempered glass there, nice and thick. And also there is a surround as well, so if you do get your fingers on it like I'm doing now, it's going to be nice and easy to keep clean. Now with both of the tempered glass side panels removed, we can get a really good look inside of here, and we'll take a look at the fan configuration and also the accessories box. Now the accessories box is a little bit on the meagre side, there's not a great deal in here, but it's enough to keep you going. So you've got some Velcro straps which you can attach to the back for cable management purposes, and also there's a bag with all of your fixings and also some additional cable ties. Something that a lot of people are concerned about with these type of cases is the structural rigidity, and I'm very pleased to say this is absolutely great, and even putting an absolute ton of pressure on there, there's almost no flex at all. So don't worry about it if you're putting a radiator or something in the top and you're worried about weight. It's absolutely fine. So even if you are going to leave this open, which is unlikely you will, you could do if you wanted to. So let's take a tour of the inside. So we'll start actually at the bottom. So at the bottom, you've got this really nice hexagonal mesh, which is absolutely fantastic for airflow. You've also got options on the bottom, so you can put 3 120mm fans on the bottom, or alternatively, there is option for 2 140s, should you wish to, on the side panel here. So 3 120mm fans is the most you can go. No options for 140s on there, unfortunately. And like I said, it comes included with these out of the box. These are reverse fans, so these spin in reverse, and I've got reverse blades, so it blows cool air in. And actually, while we're talking about that, one of my previous comments on the VXN was the fact that the fans weren't particularly good. Now these actually are considerably better. They move an absolute ton of air. They're very, very quiet as well, but they do ramp up if you do want them to move even more air. During testing on my MSI motherboard behind me, I actually got these fans set up, and you can get them down to around about 550 to 600 RPMs, at which point they are absolutely silent, and they do go up to somewhere in the region of 1600 RPM, at which point they do make a considerable amount of noise, but they are moving an absolute ton of air. Ideally, if you want to be in the silent zone, anywhere between kind of 600 to around about 1200 RPM, and they're virtually inaudible. The fans themselves, strangely, aren't PWM, which you would kind of expect in 2024. We'll take a look at the wiring a little bit later, but there is a slightly unusual setup. These are all kind of daisy chained together, not in a mechanical way, but from wires at the back, which we'll show you shortly. And this also integrates the fan at the back. So this is a standard 120mm fan, which is the normal rotation. So that is exhausting air out. So you've got 3 intakes and 1 exhaust straight out of the box. Underneath the rear fan, we've got PCI Express blanking plates, of which there are 7 there with nice thumb screws on them. And I'm happy to say all of them are removable and replaceable, so you don't have to worry about bending anything out, which is a really good thing. And also there's no bars in between, so if you're possibly installing a graphics card, sometimes we find that graphics cards, when installed, if you're trying to plug in an HDMI, because of the kind of joiner bars between, sometimes it stops the cable going all the way. So when you turn on your PC for the first time, you get no signal and you're like, what the hell's going on? With this, no bars on there, so that shouldn't ever be a problem. Also on the PCI Express blanking plates, they followed on the theme, so basically all the ventilation on here is all hexagonal mesh, which is, like I said earlier, very good for airflow. So now let's take a look at the center section where our motherboard goes. So this will take up to an ATX motherboard. You can put in smaller boards if you wanted to. There are options for that should you want to. Something which is really nice is the fact that the central pin or pillar actually is a locating one. So when you put your motherboard in, it's going to be nice and easy, going to hold it in place, and you don't have to worry about it kind of being misaligned or anything. So that's a really nice option. Another really nice thing is the fact that there's lots of room here as well. So even if you have 3 fans along the bottom here, you're still going to have very easy access to all of your motherboard connections at the bottom here, which can often be a bit of a pain if you've got fans and they're slightly higher up, trying to get your connectors into the motherboard after the fact. So if you're someone who tinkers with your PC a lot and likes kind of unplugging and plugging things in, you've got extremely easy access. As you have at the top as well, because there's an absolute ton of clearance between the top of the motherboard and also the top of the case, meaning you can put a radiator in there and also fans and still gain full access to your EPS connections, your fan connections, and anything else along the top of the motherboard. This is also going to mean you've got fantastic RAM clearance. Moving around to the side just a little bit, something which I'm not overly keen of, and you've probably worked this out already, there's no rubber grommets on this at all, either at the top or at the bottom or on this side section. And I actually do like to see rubber grommets. It's not the end of the world, and if you've got relatively tidy cable management or you're using white cables on a white background, they do tend to disappear quite easily anyway. I just thought I'd point it out. Going back to the top, so in the top you can put a 360mm radiator. There is also options, so you can put 2 140mm fans if you wanted to. And again, we've got that fantastic hexagonal mesh, which is really great for airflow. And also on the top, there is also a dust filter or debris filter. This one is quite a tight mesh on there, so if you want the optimum airflow from your AIO, exhausting heat out of the top, I would probably leave this off. Overall in here, no problems at all, fantastic layout, and actually I think this is one of my favourite layouts I've seen on a case in recent times. Now let's move round to the rear. So as we said, PCI Express blanking plates, all removable, hexagonal ventilation anywhere you can think. At the top here, got options for the fan, so 120mm fan, you can move that up and down considerably. So if it's in the way of anything, you can move that around should you want to. You've got your motherboard I/O section here. Power supply goes in here, so ATX power supply is fully supported. And above there, this section here, again, ventilated, should you need it to be. And also that doubles up as an optional place to put a 2.5mm SSD. Moving around to the back and you can get an idea of where the airflow comes in. So you've got this actually quite tight mesh on here. So this is really good for air filtration. And also on this side here for your potentially your power supply with the fan facing outward, and possibly mechanical or SSDs here mounted at the top. So airflow is going to come in and it is going to be filtered to some extent, which is really good. To remove this side panel, this is bizarrely has got captive thumb screws, whereas the other side didn't. Not undone enough. And this just slides off the rails, very nice. And as you can see, no additional magnetic filters on there to lose or misplace. And now we can take a look inside the back, and actually it's actually quite a neat affair. I've actually done a little bit of cable management just here with some cable ties just to keep that in place. But you can see it doesn't impede on the fans at all. See, if you don't use the cable ties, then they'll just fall down in front. And the top one there is a little bit in the way, so if you're maybe considering putting a radiator on the back side for some reason, then that is going to be rather tricky, although you can do it very easily from the other side. If you wanted to remove those 3 fans and replace it with a 360mm AIO, there's space in there to do that also. Moving across, so we've got this bracket here. This is removable, 4 screws, and this will hold up to 4 drives, so you can install 2 mechanical drives, so 3.5-inch drives, and on the other side you can install another 2 SSDs, or smaller 2.5-inch drives. And like I said, there is an option here at the back where you can put another drive in here should you want to. So 5 drives in total, which I think is more than adequate. Moving around to the connectivity, so we've got a HD audio connector, which is all blacked out. Unfortunately, this is a white case, so that's not so good. If you've got the black case, absolutely perfect. Then we've got a USB 3.0 connection. This has got 2 cables coming off it, so that's going to mean 2 USB 3.0 type A ports. And the last one is the front panel connectors. So on here, you've got your hard drive LED, power switch, etc. There's also an additional LED switch connection on there, which doesn't actually get used at all in its standard configuration. But if you want to put in a separate fan controller, one that has the option to put in a LED switch, so you can change the LED colors from your case rather than your motherboard or a remote control, that kind of thing, you can use that. This actually baffled me, and at the time of making this video, which is towards the end of May 2024, looking on the Tecware website, there isn't actually an owner's manual for this particular case, and there isn't one included in the box either. So what this connection is actually for, I really don't know. I've tried to connect up to the fans and it doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever. So that one is somewhat of a mystery, but potentially handy if you've got a separate RGB controller. Now we're going to get to the fans themselves and also their connectivity, which is something which I feel Tecware have possibly just missed the mark somewhat. The fans work, they're fine, and they look nice, and they spin at acceptable speeds, so not a problem there. But I'm not a big fan of all this daisy chaining and also custom cables. So these are some weird 5-pin thing, which I've never seen before, but they all click together, so it isn't a problem. They work and they do what they're supposed to do. And it does split off into a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header and also a pass-through as well. So if you want to connect up additional devices, you certainly can do, which is kind of expected these days for most cases. When it comes to the fan speed control, this is a slightly bizarre one. So this is a 3-pin DC connection. And in my testing, I did have to go into the BIOS of the motherboard and actually tell the header that it was a DC connection, at which point then I could control the fans properly. But what they seem to have done is there's no actual power coming from anywhere other than this DC connection, which is somewhat limiting and also slightly bizarre. So if I don't plug this one in, the lights won't work at all. So that is a little bit strange. I'm not overly keen on that, and I would have much preferred to see some standard fans in there with the standard PWM header and a standard 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB. This, I feel, is a little bit of a, like I say, a missed opportunity. They work fine, but for some people, this is probably not ideal, especially for a case which is asking slightly more premium money. Anyway, moving back to the internals. So again, loads of pass-throughs for your cables at the top there and also at the bottom. You've got a mount section here and also a dampener, so where your power supply goes, just to absorb any vibrations. That's always nice. And actually, the removable caddy for the hard drives, it's actually rubber lined as well. So if you are putting hard drives in there and you're concerned about vibrational noises, don't worry, it is going to be fully isolated or insulated or one of those two. Next, we'll take a look at the bottom. So we've got a full width foot, front and back, and also rubber pads or foam pads on there to stop marking your desks and to reduce vibrations. The dust filter on the bottom is not ideal. I would have liked to have seen some kind of removable tray on this, but ultimately it should do the job. Now this is magnetic, and actually the front and the rear feet actually hold it in place, so that's kind of handy. Very tight mesh on there, and due to the fact we have got that really nice hexagonal mesh on the bottom, I would be tempted to leave this out altogether. As I've said numerous times before, when you're using these sort of cases, because the intake might be at the bottom, the chances of dust going down, falling down, then being sucked in across and then up into the case is very limited. It's a very rare thing. In all the cases I've used of this kind of design with bottom intakes, I've rarely had any issues with dust at all, unless I've been doing some DIY, in which case obviously turn your PC off. Now we can take a look at the top section. So the top is pretty much the same as the bottom. So we've got another one of those tight mesh magnetic filters. Again, due to the nature of hexagonal mesh, I'd potentially leave that open anyway, just to let more air out. If you're in a more dusty environment or you're worried about things dropping into the PC, then of course leave it in place. As I said, 3 120mm fans on here, or 2 140s. Absolutely fantastic. Again, great for airflow. When it comes to the front panel, so obviously you've got the power button with also an illuminated surround, which is a nice touch. You've then got a reset button, Then you've got your pair of USB Type A 3.0 ports, a dedicated headphone and microphone jack. I'm a big fan of that. And then you've got the slightly ambiguous ARGB button, which doesn't seem to want to do anything in this configuration. Also, minimal branding, so very small Tecware logo on the top there. So there you go, there is a tour of the case, and you've probably seen some footage as well with the addressable RGB on there. Because of the fact that I can't get the fans to power up without the RGB and the RGB without the fans, it is quite noisy on the controller I've been using, so I'm deliberately not going to do that. So I will be cutting in B-roll footage of the fans, which you'll see. And also a strange quirk as well, where I actually had it plugged up to a specific controller, and it seemed that the controller wasn't quite giving the fans enough power, and it was doing odd things with the RGB. And when I switched it to the white mode, which normally draws the most power, yeah, that was doing some odd stuff as well. So a little bit concerned about the fans. In normal cases, if you just plug it into a motherboard, plug in your RGB to a motherboard, I don't think you're going to have any problems at all. Personally, I think, like I said with the previous version for the VXN, the fans themselves are probably the weakest point of this entire case. The rest of it is absolutely fantastic, and I've got no faults with it at all. I actually love the design. They've done some very, very cool things. The PCI Express mounting plates all being nicely done. The build quality is absolutely exceptional. Hexagonal mesh everywhere, which I absolutely love. And also behind the fans as well, something I didn't mention is the fact that, well, you can probably see it, it's completely open behind there, so no restrictions, which is great for airflow. So you can put a really high-end PC in this and it's not going to have any problems with cooling whatsoever. My only criticism with this case would be that if you're spending premium money on a case, and of which at the moment this looks like it's going to be around about the sort of £90 to £100 mark, which with these fans I think is asking a little bit much. If it was at 80, I think that would be a little bit more manageable because it is an extremely high quality case. And perhaps if it had the blanking plates, a little bit of rubber grommet going on there, I think that would certainly help. Again, like I said, the fans do a good job, they work, just do be slightly wary of them. I have to be honest in these reviews and what I'm saying, I can't just skirt over it and say, oh yeah, it's great, it's fantastic, loads of airflow, they look great. Potentially, some people, depending on the controller you're plugging into, you may experience weird anomalies with your RGB, so do bear that in mind. But otherwise, this is an absolutely great case, and I do like the way that Tecware are going, the way they're heading. They're trying lots of new things, new cases coming out all the time, so it's always worth keeping an eye on them to see what they do. And also, their keyboards are absolutely amazing. I really do love their Tecware keyboards. Shame they just don't do a UK layout, otherwise they would be perfect. Anyway, I'm digressing now, so I better sign off. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, smash that like button. If you want to see more content like this on a daily basis, maybe you can consider hitting subscribe and the chime notification. That way you'll be notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.